All right, first game we have Eastern Illinois at Illinois. Illinois is favored in this one by 27.5. Head coach Chris Wilkerson versus head coach Brett Bielema. Luke Altmyer starting for this one. And if you have any idea this guy, what he does, Pierce Hawley, if you know anything about him, if you scouted him, congrats to you. You are a true college football sicko. If you know anything about the quarterback, Pierce Hawley for Eastern Illinois. But guys, I'm excited for this one mainly because I think there's a lot of question marks about Illinois going into the season. Not necessarily about if they can beat Eastern Illinois. I think 27.5. That's a pretty substantial win margin or a spread for this one. So they should be just fine in winning. I don't have any doubt that's going to happen. But I do definitely think there is some intrigue in some of the players and watching them play well. Illinois did not have a fantastic year last year, and some of those same players from last year are back. So, Zach, we'll go to you first. Who is a player for Illinois this game that really needs to show out and do well to really show, the fans and the coaches that this is going to be a good year to kind of give them some optimism?
Yeah, so I think the guy that I first thought of was Caden Fagan, the projected starting running back. I know over at Keeping It Orange and Blue, Ryan over there, he was gushing about Caden Fagan and his potential. 6'3", 250-pound back. I think that he is a key guy because, they got to beat Kansas to get bowl eligible, which is going to be a tall task. And one of the things that killed them a year ago was they got down big early. And I think a big reason why is because they could not establish the line of scrimmage and they couldn't run the ball. So that's, I think Fagan, Josh McCray, Sean Garner just posted in the chat. He's, McCray is going to be another guy, but that running game is going to be really important so that they can keep pace with the Jayhawks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they have to establish a running game, especially if Brett Bielema's offense is going to run properly and what he's going to want to do with Barry Lunny and everything they try to accomplish there. You can talk about the receivers and that kind of stuff, but a lot of this starts with the running back and what they're able to do. So I totally agree, Zach. Caden Fagan, definitely one they need to look at. Curt, who is one of your players that needs to play well for optimism this season?
Yeah, kind of with what Zack said. I think the run game is going to be really important for them. So I went with the new left tackle they got in J.C. Davis, transferred in from, I believe, New Mexico. I think it was his former school. Was one of the highest rated PFF left tackles in all of college football last season. I think he'll do awesome against Eastern Illinois. Curious to see, Big Ten, slightly different than what he was playing against day in and day out. So. But, Illinois gave up a lot of sacks last year. I think they gave up the second most in all of the Big Ten. So getting that offensive line right, going to be really big for them because I think that's going to fix a lot of their issues offensively. I like Luke Altmyer. I know he got benched towards the end of last year / injured, and they kind of went with the backup who had the hot hand. But, he moves around really well. I thought he played really well in their early games last year, and he's got a big arm and was a highly touted prospect coming out of high school. So I think there's a lot of potential there. They just got to keep him upright and give him a run game to help him out.
It's a good pick.
Yep, I think so too. J.C. Davis was one of the ones I was thinking about. For me, number one, Luke Altmyer, obviously, people are going to say that. I think that, he needs to increase his pocket presence and stuff like that. Zachary Franklin is another one that you want to see him do well, especially with his issues at Ole Miss last year. A lot of time hurt, so, you can only so much going on there. But I think the biggest thing for me, the injury to the tight end coming in, the transfer Cole Rusk. Who are you going to figure out is going to replace him and going to come in and do a good job of A, pass blocking and run blocking, and B, trying to receive the ball as well. I think the two guys, Tanner Arkin and Henry Boyer, I think that's how you pronounce it. Again, I'm terrible with names. I apologize. But I think both those guys are good blockers. They're going to be able to do some good things. But Carson Gouda, however you pronounce it, he is coming in. He should be a good receiving threat, but he is pretty undersized. I mean, 6'2", 235, that's pretty small for a tight end. Is he going to be able to come in and make a difference enough in the run blocking to be able to, be able to go out for those routes and the team not just know exactly what's going to happen. So it is a smaller opponent, Eastern Illinois, so they should be fine with playing him even if they want to block. But we're going to have to see it. We're going to have to see some of his technique and what he can do. Outside of those three guys, I have no idea who else they would have playing tight end for him. So those are kind of their three options right now that they need to roll with. And one of those guys need to shine, or they just need to have a really good rotation with the three of them, because that tight end spot, losing Cole Rusk is huge and huge. Not in a good way. So, Zach, any thoughts on Zachary Franklin or Luke Altmyer or anything there? Quick thoughts before we move on.
I mean, I agree with Curt. I think Altmyer, I mean, it would be good to see Altmyer just grow from last year, because I think he has the tools to be a very effective quarterback. And again, I think that Kansas game really looms large. Can Altmyer be better than expected against is Jaden Daniels was it is Jaden Daniels, right? No. Who am I thinking of? Who's the quarterback for Kansas?
His name is extremely similar. Kansas's quarterback, Jalen Daniels.
Jalen Daniels. Okay. I
was like, no, not Jaden.
I do that all the time.
About here.
Yeah. Jalen. I'm Big Ten football talk, not Big 12 football talk. Right. But yeah, I think it would be good for Luke Altmyer to grow and continue his progression as a quarterback. I think that's the easy mark. But if I can go one more that I think would be important, I think Tara Edwards needs to get a good start on the defensive side of the ball. You're replacing two very good defensive tackles. Obviously Johnny Newton, I think he was a regular mention on this show a year ago, and for good reason. Really, really good presence in the inside of that defensive line. Here comes Tara Edwards, who is a junior, big nose guard at 6'2", 320 pounds. But can he have this? Can he make teams feel him? And can he take up double teams and really push the pocket? I want to see that from him in this game.
Yeah, totally agree. I think that's a great play there, trying to figure that out. Curt, any thoughts on any of the guys mentioned? Edwards, Zachary Franklin, Altmyer, the tight ends, anybody else you're thinking about? Or is there another name you're thinking about that you want to mention real fast before we move on?
No, Zack took the words right out of my mouth. I was completely going to mention the departure of Johnny Newton. He came into that Gopher game in the second half last year against us and just took over the game, just completely wrecked our offense for the rest of the game. So how do you replace that? You can't probably replace it in one player. They do have some young guys on that D-line that they like, but from what I've read, they're projected to be more impactful next year. So these guys that they brought in through the transfer portal, like you mentioned, Zack, how is that going to look without those two studs that they had the previous two seasons? So that's what I'm curious to see. Brett Bielema always seems to do well in the trenches. I feel like, his background's in the offensive line. So I think he'll do all right, get that figured out for them, but we'll see.
It all starts and ends in the trenches, right, guys? I mean, that's what you have to win if you're going to win these games. So, all right, good stuff there on Illinois versus Eastern Illinois. Let's move on